Morality. Morality is a precondition of intelligibility. The existence of morals, of absolute, unchanging, timeless right and wrong, is a precondition for humans to know right from wrong and actually to know anything. Like the others, this precondition only makes sense, says Lyle, in a biblical worldview, and is required in order to learn anything about the universe. As Lyle points out, we may be tempted to say that absolute morality is not needed to know everything, but only needed to know right from wrong, which is important enough on its own. But actually, Lyle writes, the idea that we should be rational, which we're talking about here, that a human should accept God's view instead of arbitrarily making up his own baseless view, is a moral obligation. It depends on the existence of morals because it's claiming that humans ought to be rational, not irrational. This implies a person is doing what is right, what is moral, when he or she is being rational. In other words, there's a right worldview and a wrong worldview. There's right and wrong even in the choice of worldview itself. As Christians, we reject that all views are acceptable, and we also say everyone ought to have a Christian worldview. That's a moral claim. By contrast, the idea of evolution does not and cannot provide an explanation for the existence of morality, let alone claim itself as the moral view. This is why, as we've seen, our culture's embrace of evolution has resulted, among other things, in a rise in immorality, in runaway evil all around us, and it's destroying modern civilization, which was founded upon biblical creation by men like John Locke and Isaac Newton. And even should an evolutionist say you should believe in evolution, to put the shoe on the other foot here, that's a moral claim they're making. You ought to believe in evolution, and we're told it's not even a theory anymore, it's a fact supposedly, and you ought to hold it. Well, that's a moral claim that the evolutionist is making. But from their evolutionary worldview, they have no basis for a moral imperative because we're all just an accident, right? So morality demonstrates the ultimate proof of creation. Of course, evolutionists will say that they are moral and believe in morality, just as the Christian does. In fact, many an evolutionist may live a more moral life than a believing Christian does. But that's beside the point. The point is not whether you believe in morals or are generally moral, but rather the question is the evolutionary and or old earth worldview able to explain the existence of morality itself? Does your worldview provide the preconditions for morality? As Lyle writes, the evolutionists have no logical reason to believe in any sort of moral imperative within their own worldview. They have to borrow from the biblical one to make the argument, which makes them inconsistent and self-contradictory. There's no naturalistic, chance, random, or accidental reason for morality. There's no chemical basis for it, since in their worldview, right and wrong can be nothing more than an electrochemical reaction in the brain, the result of time and chance. Right and wrong are Christian concepts that go back to Genesis, says Lyle, and he's absolutely right. By attempting to be moral, therefore, the evolutionist is being irrational, inconsistent, self-defeating, for he must borrow biblical concepts that are contrary to his own worldview. Lyle writes, the Bible teaches that God is the creator of all things. Genesis 1:1, John 1:3, etc. And all things belong to God, Psalm 24:1, for example. And thus God has the right to make the rules as the creator, the inventor, the designer. So an absolute moral code makes sense in a biblical creation worldview. The preconditions for morality are in the Bible. If evolution were true, then morality goes no higher than one's family or social group or society or culture. The ultimate authority is people, collectively, what's sometimes called the social contract. I individually, or we collectively, then decide right and wrong, and change our opinion as we like. And there's no higher law that transcends humans, time, space, the created universe. Such laws are arbitrary and necessarily lead to greater and greater evils. We're seeing this in Canada today and around the world. Because the Bible and its Christian worldview have been thrown out of our national, provincial, and local institutions, the governments say homosexuality is good, not evil, abortion's good, not evil, euthanasia is good, not evil, drug abuse is good, not evil, etc. Those are the laws of the majority of Canadians. Are they right? Are they true? How can we know? And Lyle points out that when people claim this, they're necessarily being self-refuting. As always happens when we argue with God, we defeat ourselves. When a secular humanist and evolutionist of some kind says there is no absolute morality, you shouldn't force your personal rules on someone else, he's defeating himself because he's just made a should statement. He just made a moral claim as to what someone ought to do. So he's being hypocritical, self-defeating. Moral claims have no basis, are unjustified, are ultimately arbitrary if the Bible's not true. If biblical creation is wrong and the creator God of the Bible doesn't exist, then no one can say should or ought to anyone about anything. And that's the chaos and oblivion we live in today. To put it succinctly, if Adam is in your past, then there are moral absolutes from our creator. If an ape is in your past, morality is relative and we make the rules. And that second version, the world in which we live today, is an evil place not worth living in, were it not for the hope, peace, and comfort we have by faith in Jesus.